Unclear whether former President Jacob Zuma is still expected to hand himself over tomorrow. So we're going to discuss the latest developments with Dirk Kotze, political analyst from Unisa. Professor Dirk, always a pleasure speaking to you. I mean, we had a conversation with Lawson Nandu a little bit earlier on regarding just what this means now for the application that was lodged by former President Jacob Zuma as well as his legal representatives. But given the fact that this has now been lodged, does that mean that he gets to avoid jail tomorrow?
Yes, as I understand it, and the way in which the different legal experts have explained it, it is indeed so. And the fact that we will be able to lodge an application in Pietermaritzburg on Tuesday will possibly be avoiding any arrest by the police. And then obviously the court case or at the Constitutional Court. So there's these different, the sequence of events will most possibly ultimately prevent him from being immediately arrested. The outcome of the Constitutional Court ultimately will determine it. But it seems to me it will give him about 2 weeks of a reprieve.
Yeah. But, Prof, what does this mean, though, for the greater South African context? I mean, we're zeroing in here around the Constitutional Court judgment, now this application that's been lodged by the former President Jacob Zuma as well as his legal representatives. We've got people that are gathered in Nkandla saying they are loyalists to former President Jacob Zuma to ensure that he does not get sent to jail. Surely that puts us in a political and perhaps even a social tipping point.
Yes, I think it's more of a political problem at the moment than a legal problem or a constitutional problem, because these steps that we are talking about are still part of the legal system. It just takes very long. I think what we are seeing here is the fact that I think from the Zuma perspective or the Zuma side, they are pushing very hard for the idea of a so-called political solution. And that is why we are seeing so many people, prominent ANC persons at the moment at Nkandla, for example, the provincial chairperson, the Secretary General, Ace Magashule, and others. But I think at the end it's going to be a decision of which one of the two will be uppermost. And I guess what I've seen so far, the developments, the way in which President Ramaphosa, for example, approaches this, is that he is firmly committed to the idea that ultimately the legal approach must prevail. But the pressure is coming from the Zuma side to make it a political issue and pushing for a political solution.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a political agenda being set. Former President Jacob Zuma has maintained that indeed he is a victim, so to say, of a political agenda, a victim of a political, even, revenge of some sort or political vengeance of some sort. So there's a lot of victim playing in this. That's not the issue. Him playing the victim is one issue. It's around how many people are following the victim card. And in that case, does it not pose a threat, a serious threat to our overall democracy? And I would ask that, Prof, if it does pose a threat to our democracy, where's the ANC?
Yes, I think it certainly put the democracy under pressure. I won't say it's a threat to democracy because there are many other aspects of the democracy that's very healthy. Including the legal system, the judiciary. And I think what is here is not a constitutional crisis or even a crisis of democracy. It's rather about a serious test for the ANC about to what extent they ultimately will, all of them together, that includes the Zuma side of it, ultimately abide by the outcome of the legal or judicial processes. And it is a first. It is actually a first. The fact that it has moved so far to this point is certainly, I would say, already an achievement for South Africa in general. Other parts of the world are actually looking at us about something which is exceptionally unusual in any part of the world. For a president, for example, to appear in court, or this is a former president, is very unusual. The last time I've heard of a president being in this situation was the former president of Brazil, President Lula. So in that sense, we are setting a certain precedent, a legal precedent, as well as a political precedent about what is happening.
A certain precedent being set, Professor Kotze. However, is our democracy mature enough to respond adequately to this happening that has never happened before, right? So for lack of a better term here. So our people are responding in a certain way, or one would say reacting in a certain way to even the Constitutional Court judgment of former President Jacob Zuma by just judging by their response or the reaction as well as the support being given to former President Jacob Zuma and the judgment handed down. Is our political standing, our political pillars, are they mature enough to be able to carry us, particularly through these next coming few weeks?
I think so. I believe so. And what I've seen is that there's no indication or there's no element of the political system that has collapsed. What we are seeing is that the ANC as the governing party is dealing with a former leader of itself in trying to resolve this position, this situation. But what we are not seeing that, for example, the Constitution, because we have to refer to the constitutional dispensation in order to also look at to what extent the democracy can deal with this situation, is not in a crisis. It's not that the Constitution cannot deal with this. Once there is a complete defiance that President Zuma is, after everything has been exhausted in terms of the legal processes, and he's been completely defined, and that is, let's say for argument's sake, the Constitutional Court's outcome is that they confirm their judgment and he must go to jail. And that becomes a standoff. Yes, then there will be a problem, but we are not yet there. Politics is it's sometimes very emotional, it's sometimes highly contested, and that is what we are seeing at the moment. But it's not that the system has collapsed.
We're going to leave it there. Political analyst Dirk Kotze giving us the latest on that matter. While to